Welcome to Reflex Point, your weekly podcast where we discuss and review the series Robotech one episode at a time. I'm your host, Major Medina.
I am your co-host, Paul Mortez.
And this week we're talking Episode 3, Spacefold. Spacefold originally aired on March 6, 1985, and the synopsis reads, to outmaneuver their enemy, the SDF-1 crew uses the ship's untested hyperspace fold system, only for it to go near disastrously awry. We have the narrator recapping the entire backstory of the events of Episode 1 and 2, which I will be looking at in future episodes to see how far back the narrator goes. I mean, there's only been 2 episodes prior to this, so I guess it kind of makes sense that if you don't have buy-in, let's give you a recap. And that brings us up to date pretty much on what's happening now, which is Roy's flying with Skull Squadron, needs to find Rick, gives command over of Skull Squadron to Captain Kramer, which is good, continuity. It's good continuity because in Episode 1, he gave command of Skull Squadron over to Captain Kramer when he went to go see Rick the first time in Episode 1. I like catching those things.
I like that because Captain Kramer seems to be like that important NPC of the game, you know?
Absolutely. And he tells Lisa he's off to find Rick, and it's revealed to Lisa and to the entire bridge of the SDF-1 that Rick is a civilian.
And Lisa has a bit of a reaction about that. And at first, I wasn't quite sure. She gets red-faced, you know, and I wondered why, but then I remembered she's the one that kept telling him, like maybe at that point she realized he was trying to tell her that he wasn't the pilot.
Yeah.
And she authorized his flight, so she was like, oh, crap.
That goes back to Episode 2 where Rick is saying, this whole thing's the Army's fault.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
I bet you she's wondering, can this come back on me?
Right? Because she's like, I thought, and then she gets all red. And I was like, is she trying to like him? Like, I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. I don't know. My head was in the clouds, but now I get that she was embarrassed that she authorized him, even pushed him to take the Veritech fighter.
Yep. Hey, you're a civilian. Why don't you take one of our highly experimental, top secret ships?
Yeah, get your ass in outer space. And he was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Especially with a cut and dry person I'll say by the book, Lisa Hayes, realizing she made a huge error.
And she was not used to being told anything else. Like she said, what are you doing, pilot? Get up there.
Oh, that's true.
She didn't want to hear his reason because never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that somebody would have put a civilian in a Veritech fighter.
Yeah, I'm sure Captain Kramer never gave her any slack.
Right, exactly. But I'm sure Captain Kramer never put a civilian in an airplane either. He would have been like, who are you?
He would have been like Jason. He's a spy.
Enemy spy. Or do you mean, I want a soda?
Today's episode brought to you by Petite Cola.
Right. Oh, goodness. Exactly.
So we cut back to the ground. Rick's coming to in his Veritech. Minmay's still in the back, passed out. Which, when we last left Rick, he was shell-shocked, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So apparently that led to slumber. Or passing out. I'm not quite sure how much time has passed between Episode 2 and Episode 3.
I could see that, though. Succumbing to exhaustion from that trauma, he killed a 50-foot alien. So,
oh, that's true. The shock come down from adrenaline.
So he definitely quite a bit had happened. I can imagine. Yes, he's out for the count, but he comes to, and that alien is now right next to his downed Veritech, and Minmay is still passed out.
Yeah. So Rick tries to fly off, but it fails to take off. And we get to see a shot of why. It's because the ship's leg is in the death grip of the downed Zentradi soldier.
And the front end of the ship actually comes down pretty hard as it tried to take off.
Yeah, which explains why Minmay comes to at that point. I was going to say conveniently comes to, but that's true. She crashes down.
Yep. So I guess at that point, Roy he fights off a few other enemy, right? And they have to were they pretty close to Rick and Min May, because he eventually Roy fights off on his way back. He fights off a couple of battle pods and emerges from smoke.
Yeah.
Kind of startling Rick.
Yeah, they do a smoke reveal.
Right. So was that smoke from the enemy pods that he had downed, or was that just smoke from a burning building that they were already by?
I'm going to think it's a combination of both, because I have to imagine a lot of the city is on fire. So yeah, heavy smoke. Well, okay, so more from the damage to the city than the battle pods.
Because you would have think that they would put in the explosions had they been close to Rick and Min May, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So then Roy emerges from the smoke and he kind of chuckles at the fact that this, what does he call it? Big Galumba or something like that. Seems to like you, and he kind of laughs about it. And Rick is like, no, because at this point he's trying to make sure Min May doesn't look outside
right.
and get the crap scared out of her.
Yeah, Roy can't help himself. So Roy walks up and disconnects the cockpit of Rick's ship and connects it to the forearm of his ship.
Maybe it's just me.
Okay.
Don't you think a viable alternative was to just cut off the Zentradi's arm? I mean, it didn't seem like the Veritech was damaged beyond operation.
Yeah, go ahead and leave him in his own ship, cut off the arm, and let's go. But you know what? Let's go back to that flashback where we see Rick and Roy flying together in the circus. Maybe he wants him close. Maybe he feels like, okay, if I connect him to my forearm, I can protect him better. I'm joking about everything because I want everybody to stay light and not worried. But at the same time, this is one way I can assure both of theirs safety.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Not to mention that maybe Roy knows he's about to try to get them out of a battle theater, whatever you would call it, as well. And he can't, you know what I mean? Like if you were trying to just, like, let's just say there was a fight going on and you had to carry some kid out of the battle. You may end up getting yourself killed, even if you were at, Rambo style type of commando, because you had to watch somebody else.
Yeah, that's true.
So at this point, he probably thought, okay, Rick's had enough. He can't pilot this thing no more. I can probably get this thing off of his Veritech, but what's the point? It had up to this point, it has not worked out.
That's true. This is a quick way to get both of them in and out. And honestly, it's a good thing he does, because Zentradi start attacking at that point. 3 or 4 of them come out. Roy's got a bug out of there, goes into fighter config and escapes.
And what I like about that, what was interesting about that, is that from the forearm, which when they seem to transform, the forearm doesn't appear to be quite at the bottom
right
of the ship, the way that Rick's cockpit is positioned once the transformation's complete. Yeah,
it ends up centered on the bottom of the of Roy's Veritech, kind of like where they put is that a fuel tank in let's say an F-14?
On an F-14, yeah. On the Veritech, usually it's that gun pod is right under them.
Yeah.
What I would think would happen is maybe it cuts loose for a second, and then like really strong magnets or something draw it back in to the position that it has to be in,
Yeah. Going the other way, like the animation shows a good amount of the transformation whenever they go from any configuration to another. And I always got to say, it's always believable in some way. In fact, this was the only time, where I looked and go, oh, wait, how does that work out? How does the forearm of the Battleoid configuration turn into the bottom of the ship? But, the way it moves and transforms, I always believe it. I always go like, yeah, looks like it. And that may have been just having played around with some toys that actually do it.
And if you transformed the toys while you were watching the show, like it kind of did the same little motion. The head would come up from that little middle compartment the way the show seemed to depict it. And yeah, I dug it too. Like, of course, it was science fiction, but it was, to me, it was good science fiction.
Yeah.
I love the way they transform.
Believable. Definitely
Yeah,
believable. And I
yeah.
don't know who to give more credit to. To give credit to the toy maker because it was unbelievable to be able to hold a Veritech in my hand and transform it into different configurations. Or am I giving it more to the animators?
Or you know what? How about let's give it to the model makers, the ones who did it, probably for the animators to go have some kind of reference off of to begin with. You know?
Yeah, stay tuned for episode 4 where we've done some research and figured out how they did that animation.
Exactly. So Roy picks him up. He battles his way out, and he starts heading up toward the fortress, which is now entering the upper portions of the atmosphere. Right?
Yeah. Cut to the SDF-1 just outside of Earth's atmosphere. So Lisa's asking him to return to the carrier bays, which is an interesting phrasing because they didn't come from the carrier bays. As I recall, Rick and his team had originally come from the Prometheus. It's the same place that the recon choppers had come from. So her saying, hey, return to the carrier bay on the SDF-1, that's not where they originated from. Something that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I didn't even catch it. I figure that the SDF-1 had carrier bays, but I don't know. You're right. Giving them a little bit of stretch, it could be justified, I suppose, but
Sure, and it makes me think also on the boy, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but okay, from the show's open, the with the theme song playing, you see Rick come up out of a carrier bay and then take off, right? And then you see a shot of the ship that he's taking off of, and it looks like a carrier, and it's floating midair. It's not the SDF-1. At least I don't believe it's the SDF-1. I think it's one of those carrier ships, either the Prometheus or the Daedalus.
yeah, I don't think the SDF-1 had a launch pad until one of those carriers was attached to its side.
Yeah, it wouldn't really make sense. Stay tuned for episode 4 where we discover what the ship is in the opening of the show. So Lisa reports that all fighters are aboard save for Commander Fokker and VT-102.
Captain Global, assures her that we probably don't have to worry about him.
Yeah, which makes sense. It's nice that he's, the people he's decided to put in charge of his operations, Lisa and Roy, he's showing confidence in both of them.
Right.
And then Vanessa explains that they'll meet up with Armor 1 and Armor 10 in half an hour at the rendezvous point. Now, I thought Armor 10 was destroyed, but that's not the way it's depicted here. Apparently, it got damaged heavily. So, from episode 1, I apologize. I had explained that Armor 10 had been destroyed, which impacted me because we were talking about consequences and death, seeing death, and knowing that Armor 1 and Armor 10 were manned ships, and they just get decimated by the Zentradi. There were casualties on there.
Oh yeah, there had to be probably mass casualties, and I don't know. I don't know how many. I don't know what the crew size was on those ships.
Yeah.
I don't think it was very many as opposed to like the SDF-1 or even the Daedalus and Prometheus.
Yeah.
But still, it was more than like 5,
Yeah, it had to have been, right? So then Captain Gloval's trying to figure out why they aren't attacking, given that they have the advantage. And then we get, isn't it Rick? Rick calls Lisa old sourpuss.
Yes. Yes, he does. Because she says, so that's our civilian pilot. And he's like, hey, Roy, who's the old sourpuss?
So Rick calls Lisa old sourpuss, and everybody on the bridge and Roy chuckle to themselves. It's great to see Captain Gloval stifling laughter in that.
Right. And she gets pretty upset about it. And I think that maybe it was because the crew at that point probably I'm sure they're all pretty close by now, at least know each other very well.
Yeah. And
they probably have made jokes behind her back that, man, if I didn't know how old she was, I'd swear she was an old sourpuss, And so some young kid, civilian pilot, all caught up in this just kind of confirms it.
So you called out their first bit of turmoil. Here's their second bit of turmoil. But of course, we don't know what's going to happen between these two crazy kids, so let's move on. Then we see all of the Zentradi that were down on the island, they all go into a troop-carrying ship and head back into orbit. So we know all of the battle pods that were on the ground are now headed back to base. And this is where we learn that Britai's, I get to use a Star Wars term, Major Domo is named Exodore. Episode 2, Britai gets named. Episode 3, Exodore gets named. Now, Exodore, who has a great voice, in my opinion, and did a lot of other work. He's voiced by a guy named Theodore Lehman. And I was looking up his IMDb because I just wanted to see what else he'd been in. Obviously, he's a voice actor. He had done a lot. But he was in the movie Under the Rainbow as Hitler. Under the Rainbow, great movie. A farce, a spoof, the whole Hitler thing. Have you seen the movie?
No, but what could be funnier than the Holocaust? A great point of comedy I can see already.
It's not set on the Holocaust?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. It's just in this day and age, man. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't watch an episode of Hogan's Heroes right now without getting some kind of heat on you. You know?
It's true. And I rewatched the trailer to Under the Rainbow, and it's a terrible, terrible trailer. It would not play in theaters 10 years ago, much less today.
Just the controversy of it, or
yeah. So it centers around the hotel that the actors who played the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz are staying at while they're filming The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, they use a lot of derogatory terms just in the trailer. Yeah,
I gotta watch this fucking trailer.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. It's shocking. All right, so.
So you were mentioning Exodore, and what I love, because you said his voice, and what I love about Exodore is he sounds exactly what he looks like, you know?
Oh, it's true. His voice sounds kind of hunched over, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, like it just fits the animated character, and he's not anywhere near as imposing as Britai. I don't even think he's half his size, but you can still see already to this point that Britai really respects his strategy or his console, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
We all want a commanding presence, but sometimes your puny voice betrays the cool exterior you're trying to portray. You can prepare for hours on that big presentation or practice asking that certain someone on a date. But if the timbre of your pipes aren't up to snuff, the only thing you'll end up with is broken dreams. But now, you can get an instant boost to your confidence with Britai brand's Zentradi voice-changing pills. Just swallow one of our patent-pending, easy-to-take capsules, and you'll go from this.
Would you maybe like to go to a movie with me?
To this.
Micronia, I would like to take you to dinner tonight at 7. Do you accept these terms?
Get the booming, commanding voice you've always wanted with Britai brand's Zentradi voice-changing pills. Now available in Mint.
Now, I would imagine that Exodore is older than Britai, maybe more wizened in terms of, we'll say, strategy. He always has not a comeback, but an answer to the questions that Britai has when Britai is asking himself questions.
And for the show, his rank was actually Minister of Affairs, and he was one of the first Zentradi made by the Robotech Masters. And maybe that's why he's not as strong, and as imposing, but he's also definitely got a higher aptitude for learning than what the others Zentradi have.
Right, may explain the skin color too. Slight difference there. Oh, that's interesting. Now, I don't know anything about the Robotech Masters or that the Zentradi were made by them, but we'll power through.
For those of you listening who haven't got there yet, don't worry, we will. And for everyone else, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And obviously we'll touch on the Robotech Masters and Protoculture in a later episode.
Feel free to edit all that out if you have to.
Absolutely.
but I thought it might help out further on, just to satisfy your interest in Exodore.
Oh, I love it. So they know they can't attack the SDF-1, but they want to keep them from being able to execute a hyperspace fold, which they will be able to do once they are out of Earth's gravity. So they issue a laser bombardment.
In an attempt to get the SDF-1 back into Earth's atmosphere so that it can't fold.
Right. So we cut to Rick, Roy, and Minmay in the SDF-1, and Roy shows Rick that he's brought his civilian plane aboard.
Yep, and Rick turns into a happy little schoolgirl.
And then Roy leaves and tells him to stay put. This ship's bigger than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. And he, which is absolutely right. And he tells him that he'll come back for them, and he peels out.
And then we know about a half an hour has passed because the SDF-1's about to dock with Armor 1 and Armor 10.
Oh, good call. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
And Britai orders Hellfire be brought down on them, without damaging SDF-1. In that attack, we hear that Miranda, Cersei, and Armor 3 have been destroyed. Again, I thought Armor 10 would already been destroyed, but okay. So the unseen Miranda, Cersei, and Armor 3. Great names. Miranda, Cersei, Prometheus, Daedalus. I love it all. And
yeah.
It was the first time I've heard most of these names.
I had heard Daedalus, but you're right. Even the other names, the other ones, I hadn't heard anything, but I loved them. I was like, oh yeah. Like I felt already, a connection and they were destroyed and my heart broke for them because holy crap.
And you know what? In the show's... Okay, so up to this point, we've been getting background or character development, but in the show's first show of foreshadowing, Exodor is explaining, once the ship is out of Earth's gravity, then it can perform a space fold. So now we have that bit of information. Cut to Global ordering a space fold at 2,000 feet above Macross Island because the attack is making him go back down into Earth's atmosphere. But he figures, all right, let's do a space fold, and we'll do it to just the other side of the moon. So, first instance of foreshadowing in the show.
Now, do you think he knew of the possible ramifications for folding?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's untested. They had no idea how it was going to work, aside from the fact that obviously they can plot where they want to go, because he's saying, let's do it to the other side of the moon. As a quick getaway, but not too far away, so we can still defend Earth. But, we're getting killed out here with Miranda, Cersei, and Armor 3 down.
Right, definitely. I think you're absolutely right. He was just trying to make a quick escape plan. He figured that back in Earth's atmosphere, whatever interference that might cause might give them a little extra chance of just getting the hell out of there. And so he ordered it.
So now we have a countdown. We got a fold in 5 minutes. Cut to Rick telling Minmay he's going to take her back to her family in his racer. And
yeah, because he's not about to wait around there. I'm going home.
He's rogue, this guy. They climb into the racer and they leave the SDF-1. Shortly thereafter, the SDF-1 does a hyperspace fold, taking the ship, Rick, Minmay, and surprisingly Macross Island with them. I really do love the effect of the space fold. You get this bubble around it that's encompassing, many miles away from where the ship's center is. And that's engulfing, Macross Island, the ocean, and Rick and Minmay, who had gotten out of the ship, but are now caught in this whole thing.
Right, and probably a couple of 100,000 gallons of water, too.
Yeah, that's what I find interesting.
But yeah, the animation, the music, like it gets like a vibration effect. You know what I mean? It's all as the music hits in.
Yes. And
you get like a double image of everybody. It seems like a very traumatic experience, which probably you would, if it were a real life event able to happen, it'd probably be pretty jarring.
Yeah, and super effective visually to think about what they're doing. And also just the idea that, we were talking about it being sci-fi, but sci-fi done well. Great reason why nobody's strapped down in their seats, in the SDF-1. They're going to execute this. Captain Global's standing tall. I'm the leader of this ship. Go ahead and do it, as opposed to where there has to be some explanation about why you're not pulling, 30 Gs suddenly.
Now, if we can go back a little bit, because I think it's kind of important. As Lovell orders the space fold, Claudia voices her concern. And I think he does a great job of trying to let her voice her concern but he's in the middle of a battle. He's got a plan. He's trying to get them the hell out of there, and he doesn't have the time to explain it.
That's a great point. Yeah, I didn't catch that.
And so he's like, I understand. I think he said something to the effect of, I understand your concerns, and I appreciate you bringing it up to me that I have to ask for headquarters permission before executing the order.
That's right.
He's like, but we have to go. And she's like, Captain. And then he finally says, just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't say it exactly like that, but he says, I gave you an order.
Yeah.
And then you hear her kind of resentful about the way he spoke to her. And she's like, yes, sir, Captain, sir.
She's no Lisa.
No, definitely not. Lisa would have executed without question.
Yeah. She'd have said, oh, I did the space fold 5 minutes ago.
What do you mean? We're already folded. But it does show, because for a large part of it, Global is very confident in his crew. But when he executes an order, you're going to carry out his order.
Absolutely. So the space fold gets executed, and then the SDF-1 crashes down on the island, which is frozen over, and that goes back to the 100,000 gallons of water that was probably taken with them from the ocean.
Not to mention probably atmosphere and everything else. I mean, I think that anything in that bubble, and I'm talking down to the most minuscule atom, got folded at that point.
Yeah, all oxygen, which would have instantly gone into space, and bedrock.
In the book, it describes that a vacuum, a temporary vacuum, was there on Earth as everything disappeared, and then made like a pop of some sort as the ocean and everything rushed in to fill the void that was left from the fold.
Oh, wow.
And it caused some global catastrophes.
Okay, I really want the camera to linger on after the space fold.
right?
Yeah. So then we see Rick navigating to the SDF-1 as a Zentradi battle pod explodes into the hull of the ship, just large enough for Rick to fly into it. That was after spinning around in space for just a couple of minutes. Right.
So he comes to the realization that he's in deep space, and he's probably a little bit freaked out. And the good thing is with Minmay with him, have you ever been scared out of your goddamn mind, but like your kid is with you or something, so you hold it together just because of that?
Every time I get a shot. No.
So then that's probably the same feeling, he had to hold it together. He didn't lose his mind. Luckily enough, his thrusters operated out there in space, and he found his way back to the ship. And yes, so a shot down battle pod collides with the SDF-1, causes a hole. And of all of that, the only thing that I had a hard time believing is that where this hole was, he flies through, and then like a blast door comes down to seal that hole.
Right.
So either this pod just happened to crash through a part that had a barrier for that, or you have to believe that the entire ship has the ability to close a blast door just in case of a hull breach.
That's a great point. You know what? That's robo-technology.
That's what it is, right? That's what it all boils down to, right?
Now, I'll tell you, I didn't notice that. It didn't bother me, but the way the plane suddenly stops after getting caught in some wires, that seemed a little fantastical.
Yeah, definitely.
It is a very sudden stop after they're probably in zero gravity, so I don't know how fast the ship was actually traveling, but so the next thought that came to me was, okay, the ship crashed down on top of Macross Island.
Right.
I know the civilians were in the shelter, so I can only assume that this was an airtight shelter.
And those shelters are impregnable.
Right. They kind of mentioned that before, didn't they?
They sure did.
So the civilians from the shelters are being transported to the SDF-1. So everybody calm down. The civilians from Macross Island were safe in the cold reaches of space, where we learn they are on Pluto. Now, keep in mind, this is 1985, the salad days of when Pluto was still a planet, And Global thinks,
any one of those millenniums wants to take it to the cage, I'll make you tap out that Pluto is still a planet.
So Global gets a call because he's thinking, we went a little bit far. All right, it's our first time. Let's go ahead and just fold back to where I said, on the other side of the moon, and gets a call. By the way, an old school phone call.
Yes.
Red bat phone ringing call.
The presidential red phone ring ring.
I'm so embarrassed that you went presidential and I went Batman.
Well, actually, I think I like your reference better.
And the voice on the other end tells him the fold system has vanished into thin air. Bum, bum, bum.
Whoa. Like, how does that happen?
Global lets that sink in, walks out of the bridge, finally lights up his pipe far away from Sammy.
Okay, and I love this scene, man. I really do.
Yeah.
There's some... Okay, so if we can go back a little bit.
Sure.
As Rick enters the hole, blasted by the Zentradi battle pod, him and Min-Mei get out of the plane upside down, so they basically fall out of the cockpit. And then they kind of look at each other and both bust up laughing. That's a human element, you know?
Oh, yes.
Like once have you ever made it past something you thought you weren't going to, and then you just, if you don't laugh about it, you're going to cry?
Absolutely. You're going to break down and probably cause your death in another way.
Yeah, probably everyone can relate to that driving, because driving sucks. So that was one of the, even as a little kid, I could recognize the human aspect of that, like, wow, I get that. So now we're cut back to Global. Now remember, the crew is young. The crew is like, I think Sammy is like 16 years old,
She is.
So these are kids operating this ship. And I had no problem with that either. Youth is king, So
right. I
could see if any kind of real space age technology was taken from an alien ship, and of course they would have young people operating it. If you put the old people in charge of it, they're going to leave, and you're going to have to retrain new people,
Perfect point.
So I totally get why they were so young, but they're young. They're still young. They just found out that they folded to Pluto. And so I think Sammy breaks down crying. And she's like, oh, no. And then Global walks out. The door closes behind him. And he just kind of mutters to himself, gonna be a long trip.
Great way to end the episode. I'm glad he got to finally light up his pipe. Part of it is saying, well, we're fucked. So who cares about the no smoking sign?
And all in imagery, because they let you know that, Captain, no smoking on the bridge, sir, and he's, I wasn't going to light it. I was just holding it, And that's something that stuck with you, especially, and it brings it back when he walks out of his bridge and he lights up, because why not? Of course you would light up. This is war now, people. Smokes if you got them.
Yeah, I do want to point out, in terms of storytelling, these first 3 episodes do a beautiful job of arcing on themselves, developing characters, and then bringing it back around. It's so satisfying, and to know that it's only episode 3. We have 82 more episodes to go.
Right. And I'm chomping at the bit, like I can't help it, because that telephone call, Global says, was from Lang, K-L-A-N-G.
Okay.
And I can't wait to tell you what I know about Lang. I'm not sure what you know, and I'm not sure what the listeners know, but he was a pivotal, important character. It just wasn't portrayed in this part of Robotech, which it kind of should have been.
I will have to say, I do not remember Lang, but let's save it. Let's save it. I will make the discovery along with everyone else as you enlighten us. So that's it for the episode. Now, I'm going to ask you, overall, who's your MVP of this episode?
MVP this episode, I've got to go with Global.
You're going with Global?
I've got to go with Global.
You're going with Global? I love it. Can you give us a reason why?
Because he showed command. He still showed compassion. And the last scene, like we just discussed, you can't beat it. Of all the scenes, Roy rescuing his friends, Claudia kind of challenging not his authority, but just his decision making. Lisa being called the old sourpuss, which was funny. But Global, saying, let's get these civilians, now we just go home. What are we going to do?
Yeah. That makes Global MVP twice. And I love it because I love Global. I love the reasons you gave.
What about you? Is he the same MVP?
He is not.
Oh,
this episode, I am going with Exodore.
Really?
I love his counsel. I love his reaction when they do execute a spacefold, when they didn't think they were going to. I love that it went awry, and he had a good reaction to it. I love that we finally learn his name, and wow, you've enlightened me a little bit more. And I love that his voice played Hitler in a movie.
Yeah, and you're right. He definitely deserves MVP consideration. The fold blew them away, blew the Zentradi away. So, in a later episode, we may get into why that happened, why it surprised them so much.
Right.
But obviously it was for a reason, and it was neat to see because now perhaps these Micronians are a little more unpredictable than they originally thought.
Yeah, they are a force to be reckoned with, maybe. Or at least unpredictable. And just like I was saying in a past episode, it is like playing chess with somebody who doesn't know how to play chess. Sometimes they beat you because they're executing things, making moves you can't possibly anticipate.
Yes. Having
said that, I'm not very good at chess.
Same way I've won at poker, man.
So, last question here, on a scale of 1 to 10 Veritex, Skull Squadron, hoorah, what do you give this episode?
I give it a 7. And I only give it a 7 based off of what I know from further research and digging from the series, that I think there's little tidbits they could have added. But that's in no means to mean that it was a bad episode or, a low score. Yeah,
I'm in line with you. I'm going to give it an 8 because it does a lot of very satisfying things. It shows that for all the military strategy that the Zentradi have, they were still surprised by something. It believably gets everybody on a ship that then gets transported over to Pluto. A lot of tight storytelling in this one.
I have no problem with an 8 ranking. That, like I said, the only reason I give it a 7 is just that I want more. I want more.
That's fair. That's fair. And I think really these first 3 episodes, if they don't whet your appetite for wanting to see the entire series, you are dead inside.
Are you even human? Could you call yourself human?
Yeah.
You're a zombie. You belong on Walking Dead. Go to the Walking Dead podcast, because that's where you need to go if this does not make you want to watch more Robotech.
Yeah. Through the coppery patina of nostalgia, I can't imagine anybody going, this isn't really for me.
Well, they're out there, but
yeah, nothing you can do. And with that, I want to say thank you to our listeners. Thank you to Paul for joining me again. This is the highlight of my week. And I can't wait to do episode 4.
As always, it is my honor, and can't wait. I've already made some notes on the next episode, and the hardest part is just containing what I want to get into.
I know. Contain it, because we need more content for episode 4. We'll see you next week.